Welcome to Show Me Sports Legacies. Tonight we're going to talk about who will referee the games. An aging workforce, uncivil behavior, and other factors that are impacting amateur sports. Now we've got a lot to cover tonight. We have an interview on the field at St. Pius High School with Jeremy Barnes, the young ref. He's a TikTok sensation, has about 135,000 followers.
Yeah, but it sounds like he has about 134,500 more followers than me. So we'll take all of the press and publicity we can get. And I've watched a lot of his stuff recently when we knew we were going to interview him, and it's really a lot of fun the way he interacts in his profession as an official with the fans, with the players especially, and the coaches. So I'm looking forward to tonight.
And we've got an actual ref in the room with us tonight. Alan Berry joins us, longtime referee, basketball referee, specifically involved with Holiday Hoops and played ball at Grundy R5, 15-plus points, 12-plus rebounds per game average, and got a scholarship to TJC back in the day.
You researched, didn't you?
I did my research. Alan is well-known in this area, and we are happy to have him. You know, the Royals came out of Yankee Stadium. Watch those games, and every time you think, all they got to do is put a bat on the ball and they can hit it over that short porch. I mean, don't you have that fear? I mean, Aaron Judge, if he hits one out, you're like, that's legit. He's probably hit it 30 feet past the fence. But those wall scrapers.
Oh, that short fence is nice for them, for the left-handed batters, that's for sure.
So that short fence measures, just giving out information here, 314 feet to the fence. 8-foot fence, 314 feet. Walked out to Burley Grimes today just to see how far it is to hit it over the right field wall at Burley Grimes. 308 feet. There's 6 feet difference between Burley Grimes and Yankee Stadium.
Well, I think that it all kind of depends on who you root for when you get to these stadiums. Yankees fans love the fact that they are built on hitting the home run and the chance that they have their hitters hitting it out of the ballpark exciting. And their teams are built that way. I don't know. It's like the chicken and the egg controversy. Do you build your team around the stadium or do you build your stadium around the team concept? The Royals have always been the most successful when they use their ballpark to their advantage, which is defense and pitching and hitting it for doubles and stealing bases. And the Yankees have always been the other way. Power hitters. Bronx Bombers, Babe Ruth, Mickey Mantle, go down the list, Lou Gehrig. That's why it's so much a great rivalry when you get these two teams together because they're different methods of playing the same game. And one is speed and defense and pitching, and the other is we're going to outlast you and then hit the 3-run homer to beat you. And it was great the way it turned out for the Royals, I think, in getting that split in New York. And now they have to come to Kauffman and play a style in a bigger ballpark where balls just don't fly out. But one of the interesting things is this year, the data says that Kauffman was a more hitter-friendly park than Yankee Stadium. To our eye as fans, that's not the case.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this series just for the simple fact is the Reggie Jacksons and George Brett days, which I lived through as a young 17 to 20-year-old, I'll say kid. Those coming back is great. I just can't wait to see it in Kansas City. It's great for Kansas City, especially they're trying to move the Royals. I think if the Royals would have been in the playoffs last year, I believe things would have passed. I'm just excited about the Yankee-Royal rival is back.
Love to see those old films of George Brett getting into fights at third base.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy stuff that used to happen. We're having a fun time. It's a fun time. It's hard to figure out what to watch last night with the Chiefs and the Royals playing at approximately the same time.
Try to watch the Royals and the Chiefs on 2 TVs and bowl in league. And that's what I was doing.
You're a multi-tool athlete there. I'm telling you, multi-tool fan. I appreciate that. We talked about who will referee the games. One of the things that we talk about in Show Me Sports Legacies is that the whole sport, the care and feeding and nurturing of the sport and the young athletes and the fans and the families, none of that's going to happen without the referees. There's been several factors impacting recruitment and retention of officials in recent years. There were impacts from the COVID pandemic, which shut everything down for a while for people, made it tough. Made a lot of people that were nearing retirement age think, I think I'm done. I'm going to step away from this. So there's an aging workforce, some pay issues, and career development limitations that all work against having an adequate number of officials. What's the result of these impacts, and what can be done to reverse recent trends? Now, this is our 8th episode, so we're going to examine who will referee the games. We'll present an interview with Jeremy Barnes, also known as the Young Ref on TikTok and Instagram. Jeremy is 26 years old, using social media as a platform to help highlight the profession and recruit younger people into being sports officials and referees. Following that interview, our panel will include Alan Berry, who's already introduced himself, longtime referee in North Missouri, well known to many referees throughout the state, our local Missouri listeners, with a discussion of what's happening, how the shortage can be impacted positively. So we're going to tell some stories. Hopefully we'll hear some great rough stories. Guys, we're not in a position to change all these things, but we are in a position to present good information about it. We're going to do that tonight. So first, I'm going to kick off this interview I did with Jeremy Barnes. Have to give my daughter credit. She set up the interview. She's a TikTok fiend, but she does sometimes use it for excellent purposes. And she saw what this guy was doing. She goes, Dad, you got to talk to this guy. He goes, I'll set it up. I'll reach out to him. She reached out to him. Then all of a sudden I was standing on the field at St. Pius talking to Jeremy. Met his wife, Madison. There's always somebody behind the scenes that's doing all that important work that makes it all look good when it comes out on social media. So Madison was doing that. And Madison's a great athlete in her own right. She was a member of the 2017 UCM women's team that won the national championship. We set everything up and did this interview. Hi, this is Jeff Crowley with Show Me Sports Legacies. We're pleased to be down here tonight at St. Pius where they're going to host the Hornets, Chillicothe. We're here with Jeremy Barnes, the young ref. He's kind of a TikTok sensation, Instagram sensation, but most of all, he's a referee who wants to build the profession and get young people involved in sports and in ref, and talk about how that evolved and what you're trying to do, what your passion is.
Absolutely. So thank you for doing this with me. I appreciate it, Jeff. I really started this, came up with the idea because over the past 3 years, I have switched crews just because the people on my crews have retired. You know, I'm starting to see it on the news and everywhere else that, you know, there's a shortage. And I said, you know what, let me try to get some younger people involved. So I said, you know what better way to do that than go through social media? So I mic'd myself up and I'm just showing the interactions that we have with the players because, you know, there are genuine interactions and it's a fun time to be out here. I tell my dad often, I'm like, man, I feel like going out and refereeing football on Friday nights is sometimes just therapy because it's just a good feeling just getting out there and being able to give back and creating a positive environment as well as enforcing the rules. So that's really what led to that is just, you know, needing younger officials.
It widens your span, you know, who you can reach, but the kids seem to really respond to it as well.
Oh, yeah, they love it. I try to include them as much as I can just because at this stage, it's really a learning process. So if I can help them out in any way, just like, you know, by coaching them up on how to get a call or coaching them up on how to, you know, not necessarily not get a call, but how to not get a flag thrown. Anything I can do to help and they're willing to listen, I'm able to give back. That's what I want to do.
Kids really want to get better at this, don't they? And they really want to enjoy it, and they love it. I coach middle school basketball, boys. Mm-hmm. I've coached youth basketball with girls before, and they're just sponges.
Yes, they are, and it's really been a positive feedback. All the comments, it's been a blessing seeing all not only the players, but the parents, the referees, in different places. I've had people reach out to me from different countries even saying that they love the videos and the positive feedback and all the interactions that I've been having with the players. So
when I mention your name, the parents they don't quite connect, and then they go, oh yeah, my son watches his TikToks.
Yep.
So they're connecting through their kids.
Yeah, and it's been such a blessing. I mean, honestly, sometimes I have to catch myself from crying because I didn't think that this would turn into something like this fast. And it's nothing short of a blessing. I have to every time say thank you to Madison, my wife, for coming out here and recording, because without her, none of this would be happening.
You've got to have that support.
Got to have it. Yeah. Yep.
That team.
Absolutely.
It's great. Tell me, do you see this having? I mean, it's kind of taken off for you.
You're right.
Where do you see this taking?
Really, hopefully, you know, getting more officials. I hope to. Over the next couple years, we actually see an increase in younger officials. I'm still trying to figure out how I can directly connect that or get the statistics from that. But that's really where I see this going. I don't really, you know, particularly care about the fame. It's not about me. It's not about me. It's about the sport and creating the environment and giving back and being in the community. So it's not really about me or my advancement. It's just the fact that we just need more officials, and I love the game and I want to see it, you know, continue to be better.
And there's a lot of old school people in football.
Right.
How do they respond to you? How do the old school refs, the old school coaches?
Oh, they love it. A lot of people, they've been saying, you know, it's refreshing to see the interactions, and because, you know, I'm giving a perspective that most people don't get to see. And to me, because I've been doing this for 11 years, it's just, it's everyday thing to me. But the stuff that I've been giving, people are saying, wow, I never looked at it that way, or I never thought about that. And, it's something that I think about as normal, but other people don't get to see that. So they love it. They are absolutely loving it.
Now, what did sports mean to you as you were growing up?
Sports was everything to me. It instills, patience. You got teamwork. You always have to work hard if you want something. Nothing's going to be handed to you. It's a team environment, so it's not just about you. It's about the people that are around you. So like the support system we were talking about. I have my father, my brother, my mom, my sister, my family members. I have a friend group that helps me. Whenever I edit my videos, I send it to my friend groups, and I see like, hey, how can I make the video better? And they've been giving me tips, like what can I do? What questions can I ask, or what can I talk about on the field? And they'll give me stuff like that. So it's not about me, it's about the people around me, and that's what I'm about.
That's outstanding, and it comes through.
Yeah.
That you're enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
That you're interacting.
Thank you.
With folks.
Thank you.
And it just comes across.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I tell my wife this before every game. I get nervous, and I don't know why. I get extremely nervous before every game, and then as soon as I get out on the field, all the nerves go away, and it's just so fun to be out there. It's so fun.
Different environments. You get small school, big school, football. You get to see it kind of all. It's important to communities in Missouri.
Right. Yes, it is. Especially going out to the small schools, and you'll see the tailgates. You'll see some of the players will be playing, and then at halftime they'll go out and be in the band. I love seeing that. So yeah, because I went to a small school myself. I went to O'Hara High School, and they have closed, but they opened up, and they are now St. Michael's the Archangel. But yeah, small schools love them, big schools love them. But it's just really a blessing just to be able to go out there and to be able to be still a part of the game and give back to it.
Great. I wish you great success
in the
future.
Thank you.
What you're doing is great. It fits perfectly with what we're talking about. Legacies aren't just old things with cobwebs in the past.
Right.
They're things we're building today.
Right.
And that we're trying to establish. So these things that people love, they're available to them in the future. They've got these opportunities. How did you get into being a referee? What steps would you recommend?
So my father actually is the one that got me into refereeing. So he got me and my brother into refereeing, and as when we're finished with this, I'll show you a picture. I started at 15 years old. Well, I started unofficially around 12 or 13. My brother and my father would go out and referee, and I would just shadow them. And then when I turned 15, I signed up through the state, and that is the path that you want to take if you want to referee in high school. You want to go through your state your state high school activities association website. For Missouri, I have it linked in my Instagram bio. There's a link on Linktree, and you can sign up right there. And then the state, they'll give you training, they'll give you clinics. You got a couple tests that you have to take. And I think for the first 3 years, for new officials, you have to go to a training, and they'll give you the proper training. They don't just stick you out there. So it's and then when you reach out to any of the other officials, they want to help, because this is what we love and this is what we do. And we want to work as a team and as a unit out there to be the best that we can, to give the best that we can to the players.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing. I wish you greatest success, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Okay, I want to thank Jeremy particularly for giving me the time there. What'd you hear there? What really stood out to you about that interview?
Well, I think, first of all, we'll take as many young officials as we can get, because at this point, there's a lot of officials that are experienced and just getting older and retiring. You need to replace those with good quality young officials, and the only way to make that work is to get good young officials in the game somehow, get them experience, lower levels, get them interested in officiating, give them an opportunity to grow. And so when they get to levels like varsity athletics in high school, they've got a couple of years of experience, and they've been in games. And if this is the way to do it now, great, because I think exposure helps. I think MISHA, our state agency, has done some things here in the last few years to get that interest back. It's going to be interesting, because as I guess a former player and then coach and then athletic director and official myself, I've seen a lot of these guys, and they do a great job, and I see them, and talk to them like Alan's peer group, and they're slowly starting to get out of the profession. And I'm worried because we got to have people replace them. And so where are those guys and gals going to come from? This is a good way to recruit, a good way to start.
Yeah, it's excellent. He mentioned a lot of things that really stuck out to me. First and foremost, thank you for going down there and doing that interview, Jeff. That was really cool. I'd like to meet Jeremy myself. I've worked with a lot of officials in the greater Kansas City area when I worked suburban down there. I tell you what, he is on top of his game, and when you start that young, that's what you need to. I did not start that young. I started in around 92 to 93. You know, I graduated in 78. So there was several years there when I was working on the farm and with Grundy that I didn't have the opportunity to, and finally started getting into it. But he mentioned the retirement of his crew. That is just crucial because that's what's happening. I'm 64 years old. I would still like to go out and referee a basketball game, and I still could mentally. Physically, I can't. My knees are gone or shot. That's why I'm out of it. The therapy he mentioned. It's a workout therapy. You're not just helping kids. That's the biggest thing. He mentioned the kids. We have to help those kids. We have to talk to them. He does talk to them, and I talk to them all the time. When I worked for Coach Hawkenfeld, I was talking to the kids all the time, trying to talk them out of the silly stuff. But he mentioned it being a blessing. I cannot tell you how many times I've got off the court at 10 o'clock at night, dressed, get in my vehicle, wore completely out, drive another hour and a half home, get out of the car when I get home and can't walk, but it's worth it. It's a blessing. It's just being on the court, being involved in the game, and that's what these young people need to realize. You may not make it as a Division I player or Division II player, but you can make it as an official if you want to, and it's not just basketball. It's any sport that Misha has. He said it wasn't about him. That's exactly right. Some of the best games I've called, I've had people come up to me after the game and say, I didn't even realize you was on the floor. And that's when I knew I'd done a good job. 11 years, you know, I take my hat off to him. He's got a heck of a career ahead of him. That's great. He's got a long time to go. When he talked to his wife about this game means everything to him, and he's nervous, I'll tell you a short story. I had the championship game in the MEC. I had been official for about 10 years, and I had the championship game on Chillicothe's court against Smithville in the MEC championship. Bland Boy was a senior. I think Russell's boy. Justin, I think was his name. Heck of a ball player. Steve Tingler, I don't know if you guys knew him or not from Smithville. His boy was a senior also from Smithville. Boy could play anywhere. Jim Newman was my partner. This is back two-man. We was down in the basement of the field house getting ready to go, and Jim was so nervous he couldn't hardly go, and he'd already done this for 25 years, you know. Well, I was so nervous that I was making Jim nervous. And so I said, Jim, what are we going to do? And he goes, Al, when the ball goes in the air, it's a ball game. And I said, I'm not going to forget that. And so we went out and we called that game. 10 seconds left in the game. Chillicothe's up 3. Steve Tingler's come. They got the ball. I'm handing the ball to Steve's boy. He says, Mr. Official, I'm going to inbound the ball. I'm running all the way around the team, coming right back over here on a 3-point line, and I'm nailing it, and I want timeout. I said, okay. With 3 seconds left, I'm calling timeout, and he nailed a 3-pointer. Tied it, and we went into overtime. These young kids out there need to hear these stories. They need to know what it does. They need to go to the Misha website, click on the officials tab, start in. There's guys like me. I could bring you into 15, 20 people that'll take you under their wing, take you with them to ball games, and watch how to referee a ball game. And you will. And if you start young, you start doing what you're supposed to do. Terry Oglesby and I don't know if you guys know him.
Yep.
Him and I've called a lot of games together, right up here on the college floor at Trenton at NCMC. A lot of high school games together. Every time I watch him work on TV, I text him and say, way to go, buddy, and he'll get back to me. You can do this. I think I probably could have made it in Division I if I'd have started at a younger age, but I didn't. And I tell you what, it's a great occupation. It's a blessing. Jeremy is exactly right. That's what needs to happen.
I love how sports was everything to him.
Yes.
This is a continuation of that. When I coach, when you coached, you feel like you're in the middle of it. Even though you're not out on the floor doing it and you're out on the floor reffing it, you feel that same nervousness.
I'll go back to when Woodsy was coaching. Bless his heart. Love that man to death. Van Devener, boy, was a senior. And Jason played at Missouri, was coaching Moberly.
Yeah, Sutherland.
What a mess he was to work for. But that was one of the best games. Trenton's gym was full, packed. Full. I'm 7 miles from home on that game. Most of the games Like I went to Columbia one time and worked a Columbia Rock Bridge Jeff City High School Boys District Championship in March. Steve Perry went with me and Ron Hamilton. Now, guys, this is no exaggeration. You can ask Steve and Ron this. Linda was with me too. The game lasted 58 minutes, counting overtime or counting halftime and the play. That's how fast that game was. Perry even told me, he said, I didn't think he's going to make it. So, man, these young kids don't realize how much of a blessing this is to them if they get started early. Yes, there's only downside is a little bit of travel, a little bit of learning, and a little bit of putting up with the crowd. Just ignore it. Ignore the crowd, and I'll have to tell you, I probably ignored you a time or two, but you might have been right.
Well, I think it's all in the way. Like, I think some of the best officials have that special ability to tune out the noise, tune out, and just focus on the kids and the game. Officials will tell you, and being an official later after I coached, there's community between players and officials, but there's also a community between officials and coaches. And you have to treat that right, too, because officials make mistakes. And just like coaches make mistakes, just like players make mistakes. And the last thing you want to do to an official is just point out every mistake you think that they're making, whether you're a fan or a coach or a player, and learn to work with that official. And we always get this negative stereotype against officials, like they're the bad guys or the bad girls, right? And we saw it, at every level. We saw it at the Royals Yankees the other night when there was the call at second base. And how could they overturn that? And officials ruin everything. And what's going on? And you hear that all the way down to when I used to help volunteer officiate third and fourth grade basketball too. And there's people in the stands. And you just have to learn to tune that out. That is one of the negatives that but once you do that and create a rapport with the other coaches and the players, it is really rewarding. And we talk about being young and starting too. I think you can start a little older too, like I did after you coached. Like after I coached and was an AD and then had an opportunity then, and you missed the game so much, and think, how can I give back a little bit? I started late and got to officiate a little bit at the tail end of my career and had a lot of fun doing it. They're just opportunities out there if you're willing.
Whether you start young or you start in your 30s like I did, there's no better gratification than going. And my first time to the Final Four in Missouri State Showdown was in Hearns. The second and third time I got to call it Mizzou Center. But there's no better gratification than getting to call a state championship game. I've had 3 of them in my career. I think in 27 years of officiating, I can think of twice I was taken off my feet. And that's part of the game. Sometimes we as officials get in the way. And I was doing a Class 5 boys championship game at Mizzou Arena, and Linda, she thought I got hurt, and I thought I got hurt. But these big boys, a 3-point shot come right at me. I was in the C, which is you get to lead down in a trail, and I was in the middle. And I could see it hit the back and come right toward me, and I thought, oh, my. And about 5 of us went through the bleachers, and they protected me. Man, they was all saying, hey, Brady, you all right? Hey, man, come on, you go. You can't beat that type of stuff. That needs to be, guys need to witness that.
You'll appreciate this. The most viral video that Jeremy put out on TikTok, the one that blew him up, was he was going to break a fight up.
Oh, my.
And he gets tripped. So he goes flying through this melee that's about to happen. He trips, he falls, he pops back up and gets everything sorted out. And the coaches are going, you okay, man? But anyway, that video of that just went crazy. I mean,
I'll bet.
The referee trying to break up a fight. And so in an unexpected way, he got his message across in a way that he never would have imagined and got more people watching what he was doing. Talk about sportsmanship. One of the things that we talk about is safety for referees. Mm-hmm. If you're doing this, you're not getting paid a huge amount of money. You're driving a long way to do it. It's got to have the satisfaction that you're describing, and that's there in the best of circumstances. But what happens with parents, with coaches?
Well, coaches, and most coaches are good. Their coaches are wired to do the best for their kids, and they should be. Well, as an official, and everybody needs to keep this in mind, as officials, we are human too. We got feelings. When people start talking about my mother, I wasn't very happy, but I let it in one ear and out the other, and I could put up with that. They got to realize that we're human too. Coaches do not coaches never give me much trouble. You're probably looking at an official that worked that many years and maybe called 10 technicals on coaches in his career. I had probably more on fans than I did. And it's usually not parent, but it's usually the uncle or the aunt that really, and you finally just go over to, the administrator when you was AD and say, Chris, could you go take care of the lady in blue or the guy in the pink shirt or whatever? And you go up and talk to them, and it's usually taken care of. I was working a game one night at Stanberry. Stanberry has one side seats, and this guy, he was getting pretty belligerent. And in fact, he told me several times, you're not going to make it out of here alive. And so, you just kind of put up with it. Well, I tell you what, at the end of the game, I walked out. I was working with a couple of guys from Maryville, and I said, "You know this guy?" "No, I don't know him." When we walked out of the dressing room, there he was. And I thought, this is going to get ugly. And he came up to me and he said, I just want you to know one thing. I don't know where you're from. I know these other two guys, but that was probably one of the best high school games I've seen called. And he said, you didn't let me bother you a bit. And I said, you didn't bother me. And that's what people got to do. It's usually the fan that yells and screams the most. It's not going to bother you, but occasionally you get that one that does, and you just got to protect yourself. It's a lot worse now than what it was. I've seen some videos and I've seen some news clips of the guys in the city that's pretty horrific. I think the schools, and you're looking at a longtime school board member of a school board too, I think the schools could do a lot more to help that if they would do it. For example, you go do a North Shelby, South Shelby basketball game, you just will slap yourself 5 times and get mad before you start because you're going to get mad sometime during the game. You walk in and the score is 199-0. And I asked the AD, why do you do that? Because he said, we can't get 999 up there. There's some schools that just don't like each other, and those fans don't like each other. And I hate to say this, but Christianity sometimes in sports leaves. And when that really leaves, and the schools could do a lot more if they would. We've tried over at home. It's a small school, and he said he went to a small school. O'Hara, he don't know what's, and I like Jeremy. He don't know what's small. I had 13 in my class, Jeff. Yeah. So, but the sportsmanship, I think, is going to continue to be a problem. But I really would like to see schools take a more active part in trying to help with that.
So I've got a story for you. So I was officiating a middle school basketball game.
Oh my!
And I was getting agitated. I think it was probably the third or fourth game of the night. We had 4 game nights, and Daniel Gott, one of our panelists, will appreciate this because he was administrator on duty. And I knew where it was coming from, and it was starting to get out of hand in a certain section of the bleachers. So I went and warned him one time as I was running by. I know, quiet down. And it kept getting worse and worse. Every call, didn't matter what you did. And I finally, on a timeout, went over there and I threatened the entire section. I said, if this doesn't stop, I'm throwing this entire section out of the game. All of you are going. And I said, I'm going to go over and tell this administrator over here that the next thing I hear from this section, I'm kicking you all out at one time. And it worked. They didn't say anything the rest of the night. And I went and told Mr. Gott that. And he loves to tell that story too, that the night that Coach Alk almost threw an entire section of bleachers out at the game at one time. At a middle school game, at 8:30 on a Tuesday, and the score was probably 44-19. Yeah. And the kids were fine. We just had a couple parents. I always used to say sometimes parents pay their $3 and think that entitles them to just be mean all night to somebody. Like, I wish I could go to their work, pay $3 and yell at them all day, right? Everything they did at the copier or wherever they work in the office or out in the field, just yell at them all day and say, this is, your $3 doesn't entitle you to yell at me and be mean to me all night.
It impacts the kids too.
I mean,
I would see it. The kids would be worried about this. And one kid came up to me. She goes, "No, what's our record?" I said, "I don't really know." I said, when you're done with your basketball career, whenever that is, nobody's going to ask you what your 5th grade basketball team record was. But some of these parents think it's freaking important.
It's state championship stuff.
Yeah.
And Alk brings up a great point. Hope Jeremy Esri's listening. His dad and I worked a lot of games together, and he did throw half the crowd out over at Maysville one night, and we rode over there together. I said, man, Scott, I hope we get out of here alive. You're exactly right. That the smaller stuff is, and you're calling the hardest stuff to call. I played 1A basketball.
No doubt, yeah.
And when I started going to MEC and Suburban and calling, I had 10 players on the floor. It makes it so much easier. I like calling it Trenton. We had players on the floor. The sportsmanship And not only in the parents and the kids, the officials need to have sportsmanship too. They don't need to have what we call in the fishing world rabbit ears. I heard stuff all the time, and I just let it go. Don't worry. Words ain't going to hurt you, but daggone it, some people just can't do that. And that's where I've seen when I worked for Misha. I worked for Misha for 8 years as an evaluator, and the younger officials is what I worked with. I'm not going to change somebody that's already officiated for 20 years. Can't do that. But them younger officials, we can change. We can get them. When I say younger officials, new officials, no matter what their age is. And we can work with those guys. And I try to do that with hoops. I still do that with hoops. Bring in guys that work with better officials. And that's how you get better as an official, is work with a guy that doesn't have too many years of service. Work with some guys that have a lot of service. Go watch them. Go watch them work. And that's really key. I just wished I could get a bunch of young men and women to get in the game.
How do we do that? How do we pull them in?
Well, I think word of mouth is one that it's got to be. There's got to be positive talk about it. I think there's got to be some times after kids graduate high school and they don't move on in the sport that they want to, that someone comes up to them and says, "Hey, you'd be a really good official."
Yep.
Right? You would be really good at this. Why don't you try it out? I mean, you're athletic and you know the game, and I know, you're not going to go to college XYZ and play basketball or baseball there, but man, you could be an official. I've seen it a couple times with kids that came through Trenton that didn't go on to be college athletes, but they were really good officials, and someone just told them, "Hey, you'd be really good at this. Why don't you try to do this?" And here you hear about them, 5 or 10 years later, and they're doing high school games, and they're really good officials. And it's probably because someone was just positive to them and word of mouth and said, "Hey, you need to be an official, or you'd be a really good official." And I think that's a big part of it.
That is huge. And another thing, the family and friends is one thing, but family is really crucial. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my son-in-law. When he was a coach, Division II coach, down in Lawton, Oklahoma at Cameron University. Wanted to move back. I want to see my grandkids here. So they finally decided to move back. And I said, "Nathan," you need to start refereeing with me. And he did. The reason I got to go work the bigger games as a little local boy was I did one thing right. And Nathan's done the same thing. I read that Missouri State book. And I knew them rules. I knew what to do in certain situations, and that's why some of those guys in Kansas City said, "Hey, I'll come and work this game with us because we need you on our rules side." Nathan has done that. He has read that rule book. He knows it in and out, and that's why he's working Division I. He's been hired by 10 conferences to work, and he's got a bunch of games already lined up. And we could all do that with these men and women if they'll just put the time in and learn the rules. The sportsmanship, we can work through them. We can make this all happen. But it's all got to start by us getting out there and talking to these kids, young people, getting them started, getting them on Mish's website, clicking on that officials tab, and start the process. Then let us veterans take it over.
We're going to do a podcast episode about Nate's journey because that's fascinating to see what he's doing, the experiences he's had, what he's learning from each of these things, the environments that he's been in.
Yeah, he just texted me earlier today in the combine. He got it opening night. He got a game. He's going to Furman down at Greensboro, North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah,
it's a commitment too.
It is.
I mean, it's such a commitment to build that reputation, get networked in the way that you need to do it.
Yeah.
But as you said, he always mentions Terry Oglesby as well.
T.O.'s a good friend, great friend,
and we're hoping to get to talk to him as well because when you get to call NCAA tournament championship games.
You've done something right.
You have done something right, and there are some calls that mean a lot. People's careers hinge on some of those calls. It's crazy.
Including the officials.
And you ask those officials that work those big games, and they always say, "This game is the same as all the other games I've done. I just have to treat it like the same game. The rules are the same. It's a big stage, but I know the rules. I'm confident in my calls. And I just go out, and like you said, you with Jim, when the ball goes up, it's just a game, and here we go. Yeah. And I can make the calls no matter the level of what it is because I'm confident. And I've always thought the best officials that I ran into as a coach were the ones that knew the rules. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But their demeanor, their confidence in the call. If you are confident, you'll get most of the people in the stands on your side, and most of the coaches will agree with you. If you make that bang bang call as an official and you're confident in it, everybody go, "Well, he must be right."
Yeah,
right. He knows the rules and he must be right and then on the flip side, If you look hesitant and don't know maybe the rules and you're kind of looking around and you make a
Eight
call,
alive.
oh boy, everybody picks up on that and they just know from here on out we've got this official in our back pocket because we know he doesn't know the rules.
You know, the other thing, guys, is, and Doc, you've been there, teachers could help us out a bunch too. You know, they see these kids, they know their opportunities, they know their professionalism. They know a lot about the kids. Maybe some of the teachers in all of our schools could say, "You ever thought about doing volleyball, or you ever thought about doing softball?"
That's a great point. Volleyball and those kind of sports, it's not this traditional track. People don't think about it. They show up at a match. They don't have people to do the functions they need, whether it's on the line or the net. There's places in a lot of these smaller sports that are important to these kids. I mean, really important to these kids.
Well, my granddaughter, Alexis, is on the volleyball team, so I started going the last couple of years and watching. I could call that. I don't have to run a lot, and you're in the game. There's a lot of opportunity if you want to become a registered official. There's opportunity out there. You just got to get motivated and get with it, and let us help you.
And you got to get on the right track. Nothing's more frustrating. We know this, that there's a shortage of officials, and then we put some official in a horrible situation and say, hey, I just need you to go here and do this youth basketball game. Well, I've never officiated. I don't really know the rules. It's okay. We just need you to fill this spot and run out there. And then everybody gets frustrated because they don't know the rules and they don't know how to signal, and the coaches pick up on that. We got to get them early and train them and give them a little bit of confidence before we send them out there and have them put in a pressure situation. And that comes down to, again, word of mouth, getting to them, whether it's a teacher or another coach or somebody, and get them on the right track before we put them out there.
We started this episode and we talked about Yankee Stadium, the short porch. We've been in some weird gyms with some weird, give me an example, some situation you found yourself in that was really surreal.
When you mentioned that, the first thing that comes to my mind, and all the Galt, Newtown, Mercer, Princeton, everybody in this small north central Missouri is going to love this story. I'm not going to say it was a bad experience, but the worst court I ever played on was in Ravenna. You guys ever been to Ravenna's gym? Ravenna's gym, if you didn't start the game, you was on the bench, you was on the court. You was sitting in a chair on the court. The out of bounds was behind us. The backboard was against the top of the ceiling, and the rim was only about 9 foot 6 inches off the floor. You couldn't hardly shoot a free throw. If you had a three-point line on it, which we didn't have when I played, but if you did have a three-point line, it would almost hit the half-court line. So the top of the free-throw circle would have been a half court. You didn't get tired. You didn't get wore out running that game. And if you've ever been in Chula's gym, it's a lot like Chula's, only Chula's has a taller roof in it. There was the low ceiling. You couldn't shoot a free throw, no half-court shots. The ball would have had gone down to go up into the goal. I enjoyed playing there. It was unique. I didn't enjoy it at the time as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old, but as I got into refereeing and got into more sports, it was unique.
Well, I mean, part of the sports experience is you go with your brothers and you get on a bus and you go somewhere you've never been before and you roll out the balls and you do whatever and crazy things happen. And you remember it for 50 years.
Well, I like my brothers, but I had Linda sitting beside me most of the time.
I've got a story about Chula. When I first moved here, my wife taught at Chula, and she said, hey, you know basketball, and they're looking for a scorekeeper, someone that can do the book. And can you come help us out and do the book? I said, sure. So, I went to a bigger school, and most of the gyms I've been in and played in and coached in were bigger. Right? First time you walk into Chula, and I was like, what is going on? I walked over to where I was going to sit to keep score, and my wife was going to do the clock, and I was going to keep the book. And I said, well, we got to get a different table. And she said, why? I said, this table is on the court. I said, the scorer's table, it was like a folding table, and it was protruding probably 4 feet out onto the court. And I said, how are the players going to avoid this table? And she said, we'd use this table all the time. They'll avoid the table. They won't run into it. And I said, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can sit here and watch these kids run into the table that's protruding out onto the court. So I know how funny that is with Chula.
One of the things I was just going to mention is the mentoring part of this. It occurred to me as I was preparing for this episode. I remembered a home plate umpire in Lawson, where I grew up. Baseball was important. And Joe Sabalas.
Oh, yeah.
Joe was the umpire, right? And if you were playing, whether you were 10 years old or 12 or you were in Pony League, if Joe showed up to be the home plate umpire, you knew that you were in an actual game that mattered because he dressed the part, he looked the part, he acted and knew what he was doing, and you had to kind of get in line with it.
Well, Jeff, you asked a question earlier, and I made a note, and I wanted to kind of get back to it. How do we get people involved in this? And this might not move people, but it'll move, and I hope it don't get sentimental on you. It'll move me. I have lost probably 3 officials due to cancer that I've worked a lot with. And when you go to those funerals and you see 200 or 300 people that you've worked with wearing stripes, black and white stripes, that is gratifying. If I hadn't have spread my wings, little bitty Galt boy, going out and getting bigger games, and I'll never forget a guy by the name of Jim Scaroni was my first time I ever got evaluated, and it was at Platte Valley's gym. He evaluated me, and I didn't know we had evaluators. He comes in at halftime and starts telling me this, and he says, "You could be something." And I said, "Well, I want to be something." And so he gave me some pointers. Danny Brown from Weston got a hold of me, and Danny Brown's one of the buddies we've lost. Scott Smith from St. Joe got a hold of me, and I worked with all those guys. Brad Tosin and Scott Smith and I went and worked a game in Albany, and Brad said he can't make a call because it's like being in a bird hunt, and you guys get the shot off before he get his whistle, So the friends, you don't make friends. You make brothers and sisters. And when we lose one, and we all show up at that funeral, and there's 200 or 300 of us, and that's why I'm not exaggerating. Those guys and gals that I've worked with, you never forget them. I worked
I remember a lot of people at Scott Esri's.
Oh, yeah, huge.
Exactly like you're describing.
Yeah, Scott got me in working in Kansas City area, and him and Danny Brown. I just wished I could take some of these younger people. It don't matter what your age is, and that's a great point you brought up, Chris. It doesn't matter. You don't have to start at young. You can start at any time. The younger, the better, in my opinion. Get in the game. If you love basketball, if you love softball, if you love volleyball, get in the game. And you mentioned pay. The pay's not bad. I can remember going and working 2 varsity games when I first started and coming home with $30, $15 a game. You take home $160, $200 nowadays. That's not bad money. You can make some real money at it.
One of my favorite parts about the officials world is the fraternity's really kind of small. Like we've already said 4 or 5 names and we've all know them.
Yeah.
Scott Esri was the one that trained me when I started late because he was the trainer at the Chillicothe
He did the
trainings.
Yep.
And I will tell a story about another official that when you guys were talking about doing it just for the love of it. And as an AD, I would pay the officials, and we'd always try to have their money up front and pay them.
And we appreciated it.
And hand them a check. And one time, the accountant, when I was getting the check, she said, "This one official, can you check because he hasn't cashed a check the last couple checks?" And I said, "Oh, sure, I'll ask him when I see him Tuesday night. He's going to do one of our games." So I see him and I say, "Hey," I won't say his name, but here's your check. And I said, "Hey, can you cash that?" He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I don't think you've cashed the last couple." And he pulls out his wallet. He goes, "Mr. Rockenfels, won't you look in here?" And he opens up his wallet. And there has to be 100 checks in
I know
there.
who you're talking about.
And I said, "What is that?" He goes, "I haven't cashed a check in a long time, Mr. Rockenfels." And he goes, "I just want you to know that." Took that check, put it in his wallet, put it back, and he went and officiated the game. He was doing a lot of those games.
Love of the game for the kids.
For the love of the game and for the kids. And you'd like to take a bullhorn and tell everybody out there watching, "Hey, you know what? Every time you yell at this person, he's doing this for your kid just because he loves the game and wants to be out here, wants to be a part of it." So maybe keep that in mind next time you boo at him or yell at him, that he's out here for all the right reasons, and we need to kind of respect that. So
Absolutely. This has been a great discussion. I just want to start by thanking Jeremy Barnes, the Young Ref. Look it up, the Young Ref, no spaces between it. On TikTok, or Jeremy Barnes with an I at the end, Jeremi Barnes. Love what he's doing. Appreciate the time. Spurred a lot of great discussion here. And he is what we hope this next generation brings, which is a love of the game and some energy and athleticism and just passion and just knowledge.
Yep.
Starting at age 15.
Yep.
So I want to thank Jeremy Barnes. Check out his TikTok. Check out his Instagram. Follow him. He's doing great things with kids. I want to thank Alan Berry. Thank you, Alan, for coming in.
Well, thanks for asking me, and I'm going to leave you with one last story. If you want to edit, you can.
Okay.
I mentioned Steve Perry earlier. I used to take Rodney Morrison. You guys remember Rodney? Take him with me everywhere, and then when Rodney got up in the years, he couldn't go, so Steve started going, but I didn't replace Rodney. Steve just started going with me. We was working a district championship game somewhere way over west, around Rosendale, North Andrew area. Place is packed, hanging from the rafters, and Steve starts yelling at us real hard, and these ladies start yelling at us, sitting right beside him, just yelling, screaming at us. Of course, we can't hear them. And then Perry, he really gets after it. He really gets after it with them. And that one lady says, "You're going to get us kicked out of here." And he goes, "I hope not. I rode over here with that fatter one." So.
Again, small fraternity Steve Perry was the first person I ever had to kick out of a game as a young AD, and I still to this day think he did it just to see if I would kick him out.
Yeah.
We were at Green City in a boys' game in Green City back in the late 1990s and early 2000s was a hornet's nest.
Oh, yeah.
When we went in there, and I believe it was the Van Devender crew with Richard Woods coaching.
Yeah.
And they got into a mess over there, and it was getting hairy. And Steve, he always waited for the right moment to make till when the crowd got silent over something, and then he would yell something out. And one of the officials pointed up there and said, "I want him out." And of course, I'm the administrator there, so they had to come to me and say, "You got to walk your guy out of the gym." So I had to go up there and get Steve, and we walked out, and he just visited with me on the way out. He knew it was all happening, and I think, did he do that just to see if I would kick him out or not? So funny story.
Well, Jeff, I tell you what, this is great. I wish people could see what you do. I thank you very much for asking me to come. Like I told you earlier, to get me out of a combine this time of year would be important, and this is really cool what you got set up in this room. Chris, working for you as a coach, you was always great to work for. I know we didn't see eye to eye on certain calls, but not every call.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Chris. We just want to say that this is worth our time, the investment of time. It's what makes this happen. These games do not happen. Who will referee the games is an important question. And we want to salvage and honor the traditions that we love. The Friday night football game, Tuesday and Friday nights on the basketball courts. It's not going to happen without the right kind of leadership and officials. And we just want to do everything we can to encourage that here at Show Me Sports Legacies so we can keep talking about it.
Can I leave you with a famous quote from an official?
Absolutely.
Without officials, it's just recess.
Amen to that.
I love it. Okay, thank you. And thank you for listening to Show Me Sports Legacies.